Donald Trump is panicking as the so-called Great American State Fair has gotten even more disastrous. How it was able to be even more disastrous than it already was is kind of impressive in and of itself. Here's what Donald Trump's been posting as he continues to panic. First, he posts that, "Do you think the people appreciate what a fantastic job we did in building and operating the Great American State Fair?" And Trump says that Obama or Sleepy Joe Biden couldn't have pulled this off. Read.
I have a request to make, guys. Hit subscribe, like this video right now, subscribe to the channel, and join the membership, most importantly, because we need to keep independent journalism alive. We are just 29 members on this channel right now. We need at least 1,000. We are far from our goal. Please join the membership right now. It is just $9 a month. And this way you can support us and we can keep the great work alive. Subscribe to America Facticity, guys. Let's go back to the topic.
Howard Stern exposed Donald Trump and dappered aus des Gautis Soundrein des Donald Trump. And he did it with a weapon almost no one else on earth possesses. Decades of Donald Trump's own voice on tape saying exactly who he is. For nearly 30 years, Trump called into the Howard Stern show, relaxed, unguarded, thinking he was among friends, and revealed himself completely. How he talks about women, how he talks about his own family, what he actually values, what he actually thinks. And then, when Trump ran for president and turned on the very media that made him, Howard Stern turned the tapes back on him. He said the thing that cut deepest of all, "I have no respect for Trump or his voters." Today is Wednesday, July 1st, 2026. And in the last 24 hours, the man Howard Stern spent decades getting to reveal himself has done it again, announcing a summit with Iran that Iran says never existed, threatening gas stations for the prices his own war caused, and watching his defeated enemy throw a victory party. The tapes told us who this man was years ago. This week, he keeps proving them right. Here's why Howard Stern's voice lands like almost no one else's. Stern was not a lifelong political enemy. For years, he and Trump were genuinely friendly. Trump was one of Stern's favorite recurring guests, a ratings goldmine, a man who would say anything on the air. That friendship is exactly what makes Stern's testimony so devastating. He is not guessing about Donald Trump. He is not analyzing him from the outside. He knew him, talked to him for hours, for years, and heard the real man when the cameras of the political world were off. So when Howard Stern says Donald Trump is not who he pretends to be, that the tough guy populist who claims to love his voters privately holds them in contempt, he is speaking as a first-hand witness. And the tapes back him up. We're going to walk through every piece of it. Pull up a chair. There's a lot here, and it all connects. And it's all on the record in his own voice. And this is what makes Howard Stern different from every other name on the long list of Trump's critics. The senators, the actors, the other hosts, they oppose Trump from the outside, characterizing a man they mostly know from a distance. Stern knew him. For 30 years, Donald Trump sat in Howard Stern's studio and talked and revealed himself because he trusted Stern and thought of him as a friend. So Stern is not offering an interpretation of Donald Trump. He is offering testimony, eyewitness, on the record, backed by tape. And there is no defense against tape. Trump can call a critic a hater, a loser, a person with hatred in her eyes. He cannot call his own recorded voice a hater. That is the trap Howard Stern set without even meaning to. He simply kept the tape rolling for 30 years. And now the most honest record of who Donald Trump is.
Then Donald Trump says the reflecting pool is looking amazing right now. It looks beautiful. When it still looks algae, Ninja Turtle green right now. Folks, let me just show you what was going down again. I want to give a hat tip over here to some of the great patriots who were there photographing what was going down. You have this account, Gene Park over here, saying, "There should have been thousands of people listening to us here," says a plastic surgeon speaking at a state fair celebrating 250 years of America. This was the main event. And you had somebody on stage, and you can see, I don't know, maybe there was 18 people there, and someone is talking about how fake boobs and root canals make you sick, and that was one of the main events taking place. Play this right here.
That are all able to connect about breast implant illness only in the last, call it 5 to 10 years. And so fortunately, these women are now learning about BII. They never knew it previously when they got their breast implants placed. It wasn't until 2021 that it was actually placed on the breast implant black box warning. And even with that, most women that are getting augmented now aren't even told about the potential risks of breast implant illness. So they get sick, and what do? They go to their doctors, they get tests, they get labs, they get put on medications, they're told they've got chronic inflammatory disease.
Hands down, whenever you put him on the air, now this is before he was running for president, he was an open book. He would say anything. And, you know, oddly enough, during the campaign and even now, people quote these interviews that I did with him big time. I was quite surprised when they dragged out every single Donald Trump interview I had done. And in some ways, I felt it was unfair to Trump because, like, for example, they were fond of quoting that Donald Trump had said something to the effect that STDs were his personal Vietnam. But really, it was in a very joking scenario. He was not comparing his life to a Vietnam vet. It was ha, 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 and this and that. But when journalists took it,
to purchase American soybeans and corn and other produce with the funds that have been unfrozen, totaling close to $12 billion. And Iran has no restrictions on what it will do with the oil that it is now shipping out, since the sanctions against its oil and its tankers has been lifted as well. Iran is making billions and billions of dollars every day while Donald Trump is flailing. This is what Donald Trump is posting, and then I'll share with you what's actually going on throughout the world right now. Donald Trump posted, despite their protestations and false statements to the contrary, coupled with the drumbeat of the fake news, which is doing everything possible to make the U.S. victory as small and insignificant as possible, Iran has fully and completely agreed to highest level nuclear inspections long into the future. Infinity, Donald Trump writes. This will ensure nuclear honesty. If they did not agree to this, there would be no further negotiations. Based on this and other major concessions being made by Iran, I have agreed to allow the Hormuz Strait to remain open with no further naval blockade. However, all ships are remaining in place should it be necessary to reinstitute the blockade, which seems at this point highly unlikely. The money and/or sanctions that the U.S. Treasury is releasing goes into escrow controlled by the USA and will be used for the purchase of food and medical supplies exclusively from the United States, including corn, wheat, and soybeans from our great American farmers. These are the things that are desperately needed by Iran now.
Belongs to the one man Trump can no longer charm, spin, or intimidate. If you appreciate this kind of breakdown, the membership is $9 a month, less than a coffee. No corporate parent, no FCC license to renew, no merger to negotiate with this White House. Just us and you. Jump in if you can. Share the video if you can't. Let me start with the tapes because they are the heart of what Howard Stern exposed, a portrait of Donald Trump in his own words that no campaign ad could ever match. Across roughly 3 decades of interviews on The Howard Stern Show, Donald Trump revealed himself again and again. This is where he casually rated women by number and looks. This is where he talked about his own daughter in terms so crude that it became a national scandal. The infamous exchange in which Stern referred to Ivanka as a piece of ass, and Trump, rather than object the way any father would, agreed. This is where Trump discussed walking into the dressing rooms of beauty pageant contestants. This is where the swaggering, appetite-driven, transactional man behind the eventual political image came through with total clarity because Trump felt safe, felt among friends, and let his guard all the way down. Stern's studio was the one place Donald Trump told the truth about himself, not because he meant to, but because he couldn't help it. The reason the Stern archive matters so much is that it is not a single gaffe or a leaked hot mic. It is a pattern established over decades in Trump's own relaxed voice on hundreds of occasions. Anyone can have one bad moment. What the tapes show is not a moment, but a man. The same attitudes, the same appetites, the same casual cruelty, repeated year after year after year, consistent across 3 decades. When the Access Hollywood tape surfaced in 2016, with Trump bragging about grabbing women, half the country was shocked. But nobody who had listened to Howard Stern was shocked, because that Trump, the one who talked about women as things to be grabbed and raided and acquired, was the Trump who had been calling into Stern's studio and saying the same kinds of things on the record for 20 years. The Access Hollywood tape was not an aberration. It was a single page torn from a book Howard Stern had been recording the whole time. And that is precisely why the tapes became so politically explosive. When Trump ran for president, those decades of unguarded audio were suddenly the most honest record that existed of his actual character. Everything the campaign tried to sand down and repackage, the crudeness, the vanity, the way he objectified women, the bottomless need for admiration, was all there in his own voice, preserved on Howard Stern's tape. Stern had, without intending to, compiled the single most complete audio documentary of who Donald Trump really is.
And more over here. Let's play this clip right here.
New York City had a bunch of primaries last week. We saw a bunch of socialist candidates win. Did you happen to vote in those primaries?
I did.
Do you feel comfortable sharing who you voted for?
I vote for Brad Lander.
I voted pretty much down the line for those socialist candidates.
Now, you can see why voters are interested in people who are actually addressing their needs versus when Donald Trump was in the Oval Office yesterday before doing whatever the hell he's doing today. He signed an executive order saying that we need to stop arresting people for fixing their cars. Why are you arresting? He goes, that's not even believable. We're doing an executive order today to stop arresting people for fixing their cars. Do you even know what he's talking about here? Here, play this clip.
Attention, because I noticed they were arresting people for fixing their car. They were arresting people for fixing it. That's not even believable. Anyway, so it's right to fix. And I think it's really common sense. If somebody wants to fix, some of these people are better mechanics than the mechanics in the shop.
Yeah, that was the executive order yesterday. And then he goes, we rule by common sense to a large extent. Okay, I don't even know what you're... No, we should be ruling by... We should be legislating, not ruling, by law and order, with checks and balances, with laws and bills that become laws through a legislative process. Play this clip.
We rule by common sense to a large extent. All right, Lee, good job. Thank you.
And then Donald Trump's concluding remarks is, we are winning militarily. It's almost won militarily, the war, I would say. Here, play this.
But we're winning militarily. It's almost won militarily, I would say.
Well, there you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. And
this is becoming the Howard Stern show.
No, but wait a second. Now, let me take 5 minutes for this.
When you interview Howard Stern... Yeah, I'm in charge here. It's my interview.
Right. This is difficult for me.
The mic is always hot. Completely hijacked.
Yeah,
right here.
But now he has a new book.
Howard Stern comes again.
I love that.
So Howard is trying to answer questions about his personal journey and his most memorable moments on air.
We have to talk about Donald Trump. He's a big character in the book. Because
he was a big character on my show.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. You say one of your best guests ever.
Donald Trump.
And then you have the same individual, Gene Park, filming all of this and getting some great footage over here. And it shows more of these conversations about breast implants. And what in the world is even going on? This was one of the main attractions at this event. Here, play this clip.
In the last, call it 5 to 10 years. And so fortunately, these women are now learning about BII. They never knew it previously when they got their breast implants placed. It wasn't until 2021 that it was actually placed on the breast implant black box warning. And even with that, most women that are getting augmented now aren't even told about the potential risks of breast implant illness. So they get sick, and what do? They go to their doctors, they get tests, they get labs, they get put on medications. They're told they've got chronic inflammatory disease. Like you heard Dr. Amen talk about, they've got neuroinflammatory disease. And, they're essentially placed in a bucket that has got no great conditions.
And unlike a critic's characterization, it could not be dismissed as spin because it was just Trump being Trump talking to a friend. You can argue with an opinion. You cannot argue with a man's own recorded voice, saying the words himself, year after year. Subscribe and share the video if you appreciate this kind of breakdown. Now, about the marriage and about Melania, because this is where I want to be honest with you, and where Howard Stern's insight is sharper than the tabloid version. The cheap take is to dig up old flirty banter. That is not the point, and it is not what matters. What matters is what Howard Stern, who knew Trump for decades, has actually said about the nature of that marriage and that man. Stern has said plainly that he believes the Trump relationship is transactional, that it is not, in his words, built on the kind of love and partnership Trump sells to the public. And the tapes underneath that observation are what give it weight. This is a man who, on Stern's show, treated women as objects to be rated and acquired, who talked about his romantic life like a business of trophies and appearances. Stern isn't inventing a theory about Trump's marriage. He is drawing a conclusion from decades of hearing Donald Trump describe in his own voice exactly how he sees women and relationships. And what Stern heard was not romance. It was transaction. There is also the deeper political point Stern has made, which cuts far past any one relationship. Stern has said again and again that the Donald Trump he knew, the New York media celebrity who palled around with liberal talk show hosts, who held positions all over the map, who was fundamentally a creature of Manhattan entertainment, bears almost no resemblance to the grievance-fueled populist strongman he now plays on television. Stern knows the character is a performance because he knew the man before the performance began. That is what he means when he says he lost respect for Trump. He watched a friend he found genuinely funny and charming reinvent himself as something darker and crueler to win power, and then aim that cruelty at the very working people who trusted him. "I have no respect for Trump or his voters," Stern said. And coming from a man who spent decades laughing with Trump on the air, that is not a partisan talking point. It is the verdict of someone who knew him and was disappointed by what he became. And this is the honest heart of the Trump and Melania story, stripped of the tabloid noise. What Howard Stern exposed was never really about one marriage. It was about a way of seeing people.
Senator, I don't have an estimate in front of me, but we're always working to optimize staffing levels.
Well, I have an estimate from the Partnership for Public Service. They're a nonpartisan entity. They say just that process of having to go through rehiring the same people that were fired cost the taxpayer $12 million. That doesn't sound more efficient to me. Mr. Duncan, your boss at OMB, Director Vogt, has said, quote, "When civil servants wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains." He went on to say, and I quote, "We want to put them in trauma," unquote. Do you see merit-based civil servants as the villains?
Senator, first, Director Vogt has addressed that quote multiple times in this committee.
I'm asking you what you believe. Do you believe civil servants are the villains?
As I mentioned in my testimony, I think the OMB civil servants, who are the ones I work most closely with, as well as Director Vogt, who has a wonderful relationship with those civil servants, are among the best and brightest in the federal government.
Excellent. So you don't want to put them in trauma, do you?
Senator, that quote you're referring to, Director Vogt has addressed, is related to certain bureaucracies in the federal government.
It's just a question for you, not for Mr. Vogt. Do you want to put federal employees in trauma? Yes or no?
Senator, you're directly
I'm asking
referring
what
to
your view is. Do you think it's a good idea to put federal employees in trauma?
I work very well with the civil servants at OMB. The quote that you're referring to was a reference to weaponized bureaucracies.
Mr. Duncan, I'm asking you right now what your view is. Do you want to put federal employees into trauma? Yes or no?
Senator, like I said, I completely support the civil servants that work at OMB. And that quote that you're referring to has been taken out of context
I was
and has
asking
been addressed by the director up here.
So it's interesting you don't want to provide a
You know, I haven't seen you since Trump got elected, oddly enough. Yeah, I think
we've seen each other.
No, I don't think
really?
since that. And, you know, obviously the show is very Trump-oriented when you do your thing because it's what people are talking about. It's all anybody talks about.
Right.
It's almost like no other news is happening.
Well, he's the biggest news that's happening.
He's the biggest news. So I'm imagining, because I see it on my show, if I say anything slightly negative about Trump, slightly negative, fans will call in and go, "Would you fucking stop talking about politics?
Right.
Would you cut this shit already?" Everyone thinks.
All right, well, we can see at the closing bell at 7:04 p.m. right here. Nope, nobody there. Nobody there. Jonathan Turley, who I guess purports to be a constitutional lawyer at George Washington University, although everything he says seems to want to destroy the Constitution. He says, "I just finished an interview on the Supreme Court from the temporary Fox studio. While it is scorching hot, it's a gorgeous view. Here's how it looks from inside." Yeah, there's nobody there right here. And I guess somebody then called Turley. You know, he's one of Donald Trump's sycophants. And Turley goes, "The people who I spoke with were having a ball, watching a rodeo, as well as World Cup games. I attended the 1976 celebrations as a young page, and this is even more grand. If you can, you should make it down to the mall." It's not more grand. What are you talking about? Okay? There's nobody who's there right now, and this could have just been a great event. You had Amanda Moore showing this satire AP account, milking a cow. That was one of the main attractions. Play this clip. Then you had state regime media Fox saying there were tens of thousands of people at the Texas booth. Anarchy Princess, who's done an amazing job covering this, and she does an amazing job covering everything. Here's what she was able to film. Here, play this clip.
Catch us tomorrow. Go Texas.
The same man who, on Stern's tapes, rated women and treated relationships as acquisitions is the man now running the country. And the transactional coldness Stern heard in Trump's voice about women is the same coldness the country now sees in how he treats allies, voters, and the truth itself. Stern's insight was never gossip. It was character analysis, drawn from the source. He heard how Donald Trump talked about the people closest to him when he thought no one important was listening, and he concluded that a man who talks that way about his own family and his own romantic life will talk that way about a nation. This week, announcing fake summits, threatening gas stations, letting a sexual abuse verdict stand, Trump is simply being, on the world stage, the man Howard Stern heard in the studio all those years. Hit subscribe if this kind of breakdown is what you're here for. Share the video. The corporate media won't connect any of these dots. Stern went further and more personal than almost any other celebrity in America. During the 2024 campaign, he came off the fence entirely, endorsing Trump's opponent and telling his massive audience that he could not stay neutral about a man he believed was a genuine danger. He talked about the friendship ending, about how it broke something in him to see who Trump had become. He mocked Trump's fragility, his obsession with crowd sizes and ratings and being laughed at. And crucially, Stern speaks to an audience that is not a typical political audience, millions of ordinary, apolitical, working-class listeners, exactly the kind of people Trump claims as his base. When Howard Stern tells that audience that Trump privately has contempt for them, it lands in a way a cable news panel never could. Stern is not preaching to the choir. He is talking to the congregation Trump thinks he owns, and he is telling them the truth. And Stern paid a price for it, which is worth remembering. When Stern turned on Trump, Trump did what Trump always does. He attacked, sneering that Stern had lost his mojo, that his show was fading, that he'd been captured by the radical left. But Stern didn't flinch, and the reason he didn't flinch is instructive. He genuinely doesn't need anything from Donald Trump. He is one of the most successful broadcasters in American history, financially independent, beholden to no network executive who might get a nervous phone call from the White House. Like the independent voices thriving right now while the corporate networks fold, Howard Stern has no lever for Trump to pull. He can say exactly what he witnessed without fear, because there is nothing Trump can take from him. That freedom is why his testimony is so much more valuable than the careful hedged coverage on the networks that are busy settling their own lawsuits with the president. There is something almost tragic in the way Stern describes it, and it is the opposite of partisan glee. Stern has talked about genuinely liking the old Trump.
Yeah, there's nobody at the Texas booth at all. Okay, then after you had that one doctor talking about, maybe two people on stage talking about breast implants and root canals. And I mean, that was like, that's their concert. That's their concert. Then you had Dr. Oz on stage with Dean Cain talking about how great the crowd was. And then the TMZ camera panned and you saw that there was nobody there really. I mean, maybe like 75 people. You could account for yourself. Here, play this clip.
And it's because there's tons of people here. It's a huge space, and it's just going to get more and more crowded as the week goes on.
Not only do we have a lot of people here, we have people that you want to have here, like Stacey Garrity. That woman's going to be next governor of Pennsylvania.
There
right
we
there.
go.
Yep, look at her. That beautiful red.
And it's because there's tons of people here. It's a huge space, and it's just going to get more and more crowded as the week goes on.
Not only do we have a lot of people here, we have people that you want to have here, like Stacey Garrity. That woman's going to be next governor of Pennsylvania.
There
right
we
there.
go.
Yep, look at her. That beautiful red.
And made it serious. I thought it was a little bit unfair. Having said that, though, Donald Trump would come on my show, and this is why he was great. There was no filter. I go, Donald, Angelina Jolie, she's one of the most beautiful actresses in the world. She's a 6, you know. Now, who says that? You know, most people, if they're having that thought, keep that pretty guarded. Not Donald. He was right into it. Ivanka Trump.
You know who's one of the great beauties of the world, according to everybody, and I helped create her? Who? Ivanka.
Most beautiful girl in the world. You know, I would marry her. These types of things.
Our land, this is our area. And then they were struck down. And then the U.S. said that we were acting defensive by attacking Iran yet again. This was defensive. This was not aggressive. We were on the defense by going on the offense. This is straight out of George Orwell's 1984. In fact, far more dangerous in my view. But then Iran responded, and Iran just targeted the U.S. air base and hit it again. Meanwhile, you have all Donald Trump's weirdo MAGA propagandists like Laura Loomer saying, it's time to finish the job. The back and forth is getting boring. The back and forth is getting boring. You know, the American people are suffering right now as a result of this catastrophic war. And people across the world are suffering. And the Trump regime and Netanyahu have engaged in terrible war crimes in Iran, in Lebanon, genocide in Gaza. I mean, did you know that in the past 24 hours, 41 people were killed and 140 people were wounded in Israeli strikes across Lebanon on Saturday, which frankly should be called U.S. and Israeli strikes across Lebanon because Trump is green lighting this. According to Lebanon's health ministry, Israeli attacks have killed 3,412 people and wounded 10,269 others since Israel escalated its assault on March 2nd. And we've seen amongst these 41 people killed and 140 wounded, children, mothers, lots of innocent people. And again, that doesn't get any attention at all. That's right by the city of Tyre.
Finding him funny, entertaining, a great guest, a friend. His disillusionment is not the disillusionment of an enemy who was always looking for a reason. It is the disillusionment of a friend who watched someone he knew choose cruelty and lies as a path to power, and then turn that cruelty on the very people who trusted him most. That is what gives I have no respect for Trump or his voters its weight. It is not a cheap shot. It is the sound of a man who knew Donald Trump better than almost any public figure alive, finally concluding that the person he knew had become something he could no longer respect. And when the man who has the tapes, the actual literal recordings of who Trump is, reaches that conclusion, the country should listen. Now bring it all the way to the present, because the news from the last 24 hours and the last week is a relentless confirmation of the character Howard Stern captured on tape decades ago. The vain, dishonest, admiration-hungry man who cannot tell the truth and cannot take responsibility. Start with the freshest humiliation, because it is pure distilled Trump. On Monday, Trump posted a triumphant all-caps announcement, Iran has requested a meeting. It will take place tomorrow in Doha. Iran is coming to me. I am in control. And then, over the next 24 hours, the entire thing collapsed in public. Iran's chief negotiator had already said before Trump even posted that no meetings were scheduled. Iran's foreign ministry called Trump's claim that Tehran requested the meeting fake news. And Qatar itself, the host, confirmed the truth through its foreign ministry spokesman. Trump's envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, were in Doha to meet with Qatari mediators. But, in the spokesman's own words, they are not here for direct negotiations with the Iranians. The summit Trump announced to the world did not exist. This is the exact man Howard Stern knew, the one who says whatever makes him look powerful in the moment, whether or not it is remotely true. And think about what that reveals, because it is the core of everything Stern understood. The most basic thing a president's word is supposed to do is be true when he states a plain fact. When the president says, there will be a meeting tomorrow, the world is supposed to be able to believe him. Donald Trump has burned through that so completely that when he announces a summit, the responsible thing is to wait for the other government to confirm whether it's real. And this week, 3 separate parties, Iran's negotiator, Iran's foreign ministry, and the host government of Qatar, all contradicted the President of the United States on the simple question of whether a meeting was happening. That is not a man being caught in a spin. That is a man whose word has stopped meaning anything at all. Howard Stern spent 30 years listening to Donald Trump say whatever served him in the moment. Stern is the least surprised man in America. He heard it all coming 30 years ago in his own studio, and it gets more humiliating. While Trump was announcing a fictional meeting, Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, was calling the entire deal a great victory for the Iranian people. The country Trump spent $100 billion and 13 American lives bombing, the country he threatened just days ago would no longer exist, is publicly celebrating the agreement as its own win.
As our editor-in-chief Ron Filipkowski writes, they just continue to insist that there are massive crowds showing up to this thing, despite the fact that this is also the 200th anniversary of the invention of a camera. Then you have state regime media Fox saying, there's a lumberjack demonstration going on in the center of the fair. Here, play this clip.
Right. We should point out there's a lumberjack demonstration going on in the center of the state fair. That chainsaw is unlike any chainsaw that I have ever owned in my life. It sounds like it's got a 500cc motocross engine on it. That thing is super.
I bet you Sean Duffy knows a little bit about that, right?
Sure, he probably does. Yeah, we're showing it on screen right now. So there you can see it. Sean Duffy's going to be joining us tomorrow, apparently, so you can talk more about it.
Andrew Leadon shows what the reflecting pool looks like right now, unmodified photos. Amanda Moore posted a video of what the reflecting pool looked like. It's still that sludge green. Our friend Jim Acosta went to this event, the Great American State Fair. Here's what he was able to observe. I'll show you his experience first. Here, play this clip. Right when you get your Doge dividend checks, it's right around the corner. Everything's right around. Just you wait. 2025 was going to be our year, but then we moved it to 2026. 2025 set the foundation. 2026 is the banquet. 2027, right around the corner. You're going to be, it's 2028. It's going to be 2020. And then 2029, let's just blame the new person in office and say that was the person who did it. We'll blame Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci did it. We'll blame Obama or Biden or Hunter Biden. Anyway, here's what MAGA Republican Congressmember Fry said. Let's play it.
Congressman, are you going to the 250th anniversary of the United States, this event that's going on in the mall right now?
I'll be there this week with my family, yeah.
Okay. Why do you think it has been well attended so far?
Well, it's a weekday, for sure. So I think as people start to flood into the nation's capital to celebrate, you're going to start to see increased crowds. So people will go to that. They'll go to any number of things that are out here, visiting our museums, seeing the monuments that are open to the public. So it's all part of enjoying the history, the rich history of this country.
There you have it, folks, I guess.
And the $6 billion in frozen assets Iran came to Doha to collect? Qatar confirmed it has not even been transferred yet and will only be released according to the advancement of negotiations. So Iran declared victory, refused to meet Trump, and hasn't even gotten its money. And Trump still announced a triumphant summit. The gap between the boast and the reality is the whole Donald Trump story, and Howard Stern has been pointing at that gap since the 1990s. And it gets more humiliating. While Trump was announcing a fictional meeting, Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, was calling the entire deal a great victory for the Iranian people. The country Trump spent $100 billion and 13 American lives bombing, the country he threatened just days ago would no longer exist, is publicly celebrating the agreement as its own win. And the $6 billion in frozen assets Iran came to Doha to collect? Qatar confirmed it has not even been transferred yet and will only be released according to the advancement of negotiations. So Iran declared victory, refused to meet Trump, and hasn't even gotten its money. And Trump still announced a triumphant summit. The gap between the boast and the reality is the whole Donald Trump story, and Howard Stern has been pointing at that gap since the 1990s. If you're getting value from this breakdown, the membership is $9 a month, less than a cup of coffee, and it fuels independent journalism while the corporate networks settle lawsuits and cancel the hosts who tell the truth. Jump in if you can. Share the video if you can't. Then there is the detail that reeks of exactly the kind of self-dealing the tapes always hinted at. The man Trump sent to Doha to negotiate is his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, whose private equity firm, Affinity Partners, took $2 billion from Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund after he left the first Trump White House, plus large investments from the United Arab Emirates and Qatar, the very Gulf countries at the center of these negotiations. Kushner has waved off the obvious conflict of interest with a line that could have come straight off a Stern Show tape. What people call conflicts of interest, Steve and I call experience and trusted relationships. Experience and trusted relationships. That is the family business Howard Stern always understood Trump to be running. Everything transactional, everything for the family, the line between public duty and private profit simply erased. Sit with the arrangement for a second because it is genuinely stunning. The president's son-in-law runs a private investment fund that has taken billions of dollars from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. That same son-in-law is now the president's personal envoy, dispatched to Qatar to negotiate a Middle East deal involving those exact governments, the ones who wrote him those checks. There's no wall between the family's private financial interests and the foreign policy of the United States. There isn't even a curtain, and the family's response to anyone who points this out is a shrug and a smirk. Experience and trusted relationships. Howard Stern spent decades listening to Donald Trump describe a worldview in which everything is a transaction and everything flows to the family. This is that worldview running American foreign policy in real time, with the world's most sensitive negotiations handed to a man financially entangled with the very countries across the table.
You have either fallen victim to the conspiracy mindset that says that election was rigged. And if you're a conspiracy theorist, you shouldn't be let anywhere near the position you've been nominated for. Or, President Biden won the election, but you're afraid of making an insecure president mad by acknowledging that fact. You answered so easily when I asked you the question about 2024. You didn't fight, you didn't evade, you didn't obscure, you didn't try to end run. You said President Trump won the election, which he did. He won the popular vote, he won the Electoral College. The answer was just as simple about 2020. The fact that you were unable to give the simple answer about 2020 raises real serious questions about you. Let me ask you this.
Then we move on to Democratic Senator Blumenthal, who was cross-examining one of Donald Trump's pick, Bartholomew, about the same types of questions. Here, let's play this clip right here.
So let me test your independence.
That are with us, but don't the Democrats and various seemingly unpatriotic Republicans understand that this is much tougher for me to properly do my job and negotiate when political hacks keep negatively chirping at levels never seen before over and over again, that I should move faster or move slower or go to war or not go to war or whatever? Just sit back and relax. It will all work out well in the end. It always does, DJT. Is that the most pathetic damn?
Most people, certainly politicians, don't say.
Well, no question about it. Do you feel that in some way you helped make him president?
Absolutely. Because Donald would come on my show. I mean, look.
Does it make you feel bad or good?
Well, look, I did not vote for Donald Trump. I go into great lengths in this book, and I think people will be interested in this. Hillary Clinton, like in Moby Dick, I was chasing her. She was my obsession. I wanted to see Hillary Clinton win, and I thought if she had come.
Well, here we are in the National Mall checking out the Great American State Fair, Donald Trump's version of America's 250th birthday here in the nation's capital. And if you're looking for a place with really no lines whatsoever, then you better come down to the mall. There's even a miniature version of Donald Trump's arch. Isn't that cute? Look at that little thing right there. Yeah, as you can see, no line to get in. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We're on the National Mall. It's probably the nicest weather of the week, and there are no lines to get in. Hardly anybody in line. Surely there must be a long line for the Ferris wheel. It's the big attraction down here. Let's take a look. Oh boy. Yeah, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's about lunchtime. I'm a little parched. Could use a burger or something. I hope there's not a long line in here. This is the arch that they put down on the National Mall. Look at this. There's a huge gap. I mean, this is a pretty good example of the shoddy construction down here. Look at these gaps in between these faux columns and one of the main pavilions down here and the actual ground. It's like 2 or 3 feet.
But Trump is everywhere, like inside this agriculture department booth. You can also sign up for Trump's savings accounts in the Treasury Department booth.
And where would the Great American State Fair be without their own propagandists? Yes, there they are. There's Fox News doing their programming from down here on the National Mall, probably telling everybody what a massive celebration there is going on down here. The fossil fuel industry seems to have their own little talk that's going on. They're doing like a panel discussion, and there's nobody listening, just a few people.
The threats that are growing with the growth of AI, the ability before you need a nation.
Well, in one of these pavilions, I found a sweeping exhibit that can only be described as an ode to the religious right.
Here we have our great nation that we want to make great again.
And back home, in the same 24 hours, Trump lashed out at the one consequence of his war Americans feel directly: gas prices. He posted in all caps, "Gasoline retailers must get their prices down immediately," warning that if they didn't, big problems lie ahead. Trump started a war with Iran. The war disrupted the Strait of Hormuz, through which a fifth of the world's oil flows. Prices went up, and his response is to threaten the gas station owners, as if the corner station started the war. It is the tell of a man who has never once accepted responsibility for a consequence of his own actions. Everything is someone else's fault. That is the Trump Howard Stern knew. Charming, funny, and utterly incapable of admitting he was ever wrong about anything. The courts, meanwhile, delivered a split verdict on his power in the same window. The Supreme Court handed Trump a sweeping win, ruling 6-3 that he can fire and replace the commissioners of independent agencies, overturning more than 90 years of precedent. But in the same breath, the court blocked him from firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, with Chief Justice Roberts calling the attempt an interpretive leap out of step with the law. And separately, the court quietly declined to hear Trump's appeal of the $5 million verdict in the E. Jean Carroll case. The civil finding that he sexually abused and defamed her. That verdict is now final. There is no higher court. The sitting president is, as a settled matter of American law, a man a jury found sexually assaulted a woman. The same appetites and entitlement Howard Stern's tapes captured in Trump's own voice decades ago, now confirmed by a jury and left standing by the highest court in the land. Think about how those two things fit together. Decades ago, on Stern's show, Trump bragged in his own voice about the way he treated women. Years later, a jury heard evidence and found he had sexually abused one. This week, the Supreme Court he reshaped let that finding stand for good. The line runs straight from the studio tape to the courtroom verdict. The same man, the same character, documented across 30 years by a friend who was recording the whole time. And the war, Stern warned this man, was too reckless to handle keeps unraveling. This past week, just days ago, the U.S. struck Iran 3 times in 3 weeks. Iran struck back at U.S. military bases in Kuwait and Bahrain, and Trump threatened on Truth Social that the Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist. Trump claimed Iran agreed to inspections into the future, infinity. Iran flatly denied it. He got into a shouting match with Republican Senator Bill Cassidy in a closed-door meeting. His administration asked Congress for about $87.6 billion to pay for the war. Cassidy called the deal the worst foreign policy blunder in decades, writing that Reagan is rolling over in his grave. Senator Tom Tillis said, $100 billion has been spent since the first kinetic strike. We've lost 2 F-18s. The deal itself, CNN reported plainly, is widely viewed as highly favorable to Tehran. It emerged Iran had offered to downblend its uranium 2 days before the war even started, meaning Trump fought a $100 billion war to reach a deal he could have had for free.
All right, so that was Acosta's experience. Then you have Daniel Basali, who I believe is a Trump supporter. And he was out there. I think this guy's a MAGA guy and Trump supporter. And he said, just another example of what's online isn't reality. We've met thousands of Americans from all over at the @AFP headquarter exhibit at the Great American State Fair. Okay, you could just watch what he's filming. I mean, I'll go by your own video right here. Here, play this clip.
I am walking out from the Made in America pavilion at the Great American State Fair. And I just gotta say, you cannot pay attention to what some of the haters are saying. This thing is awesome. There are people everywhere. It is a beautiful day in Washington, D.C. A little hot. It's only going to get hotter, but there's a lot of people out here. They are engaged. They are excited. They love America. They're having a great time learning more about this country. It's just been a really positive experience. And so what you see online ain't always the truth.
So then we asked members on Capitol Hill about this event. Congresswoman Ansari, we asked, what do you make of no one showing up to the 250th? Play this clip.
So, Congresswoman, what do you make of no one showing up to Donald Trump's 250th anniversary party on the Mall?
I'm not surprised at all. Nobody wants to be associated with the most corrupt president in American history who has absolutely destroyed this country as he's enriched himself and his family. So it was hilarious and pretty sad to see Fox News with the empty background behind them trying to tout this as some sort of success.
Got it. Thank you, Congresswoman.
Iran and Oman would be able to jointly administer it however they want. If they want to charge costs, that's permitted in the MOU. Now, as I noted before, you have dozens of tankers leaving the Strait of Hormuz, but the first armada of oil right now, it's Iranian oil. Over a dozen tankers laden with Iranian crude steaming east following the end of the U.S. blockade. Iran was ready to go with all of its ships, and it's pushing out dozens and dozens of ships right now. Let's talk about what Pakistan is saying right now. What happened? So after Araghchi visited Muscat, Oman, you see they're making strategic moves right now in Iran. They then go to Pakistan. They meet with Prime Minister Sharif. And here's what Prime Minister Sharif, the mediator, okay? Again, going back to the mediator. What does this is who the U.S. wants to mediate the dispute between the U.S. and the war, or the surrender by the U.S. and this catastrophic war against Iran. It's this guy, Prime Minister Sharif. It's also Field Marshal Munir. But here's what, and Qatar has been involved. But here's what Sharif says. There cannot be a double standard where some countries can have ballistic missiles and Iran should not. You cannot digest this kind of duplicity. In other words, the mediator says Iran gets its ballistic missiles. The mediator, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Sharif, also says there are spoilers all over the world who want to scuttle this peace deal. They don't want the Iranian nation, a great nation, to come out of the ashes of war and touch the zenith of glory, referring to Israel. Sharif then says the MOU does not mention ballistic missiles. He also says, I'm very grateful to the Iranian leadership for having trust in Pakistan's ability to mediate with honesty. I want to assure you that as brothers, we will never let you down. We offer our deepest condolences on the killing of innocent Iranian brothers and sisters, including children whose numbers have reached into the thousands. Please convey my warmest regards to His Eminence, the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khomeini. Thanks to his leadership, Iran has been able to achieve this MOU. As a result, a ceasefire with dignity and honor.
More than 3,800 people have been killed in Lebanon, where Israel has announced an extended stay, despite the deal's promise to end operations there. Iran even rejected a French plan to help clear mines from the Strait of Hormuz, warning Paris against provocations because Iran wants sole control of the waterway, and the deal effectively hands it to them, giving Tehran a formal role in defining the future administration of a strait that used to be international. Meanwhile, Iran's slain Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's funeral has been scheduled for July 4th through 9th, with his son Mojtaba installed as the new Supreme Leader. The dynastic succession Trump's war did nothing to prevent. Even Pope Leo XIV said this week that war is never blessed by God. And the Vanity Stern documented for decades was on full display at Trump's own 250th anniversary Great American State Fair last week. The event that fell apart before it began with musical acts dropping out and a fifth of the states refusing to send delegations. His transportation secretary called the no-show musicians libtards from the stage. Attendees were seen flocking toward the exits in the middle of Trump's campaign-style speech. And the next day, Trump posted that at least 45,000 people were there, a claim NBC News flatly called false. He posted it once, and then, as NBC noted, 5 hours later, either trying to convince the public or himself, he posted it again, insisting the rally was packed, 45,000 people. Crowd-sized lies in 2026, exactly as Stern always said. A man whose need to be seen as bigger, more loved, more watched than he actually is, overrides even his grip on reality. Howard Stern watched this exact insecurity up close for 30 years. The desperate, bottomless hunger to be perceived as a winner. The inability to let even an empty field be an empty field. On June 14th, at his 80th birthday UFC night at the White House, he fell asleep on camera while a fighter hurled a slur at Michelle Obama, and he smirked. On June 8th, he became the first sitting president ever to attend an NBA Finals game at Madison Square Garden, where he was thunderously booed. On June 7th, he stormed off Meet the Press after Kristen Welker pressed him, telling her, "You're either crooked or you're stupid," before crushing his microphone. Trump's history of attacking people is now an open part of the public record. Quiet Piggy to Bloomberg's Catherine Lucy, most obnoxious reporter to ABC's Rachel Scott, a dumb person to MS Now's Akayla Gardner, hatred in her eyes to CNN's Caitlin Collins, either crooked or stupid to Kristen Welker, smirking at the slur against Michelle Obama, a stupid son of a bitch about Barack Obama, blow the same out of them about Iran. I'm blaming JD about his own vice president. The pattern is the message, and it is the exact character Howard Stern's tapes captured before anyone else was listening. A man whose default mode is contempt. The Republican defection list keeps growing. Pence, Cruz, Graham, Wicker, Massey, Fitzpatrick, Barrett, Davidson, Bill Cassidy, now in an open shouting match with Trump.
We asked AOC what she felt. Here, play this clip.
So, Congresswoman, what do you make of nobody showing up to Donald Trump's 250th anniversary party on the Mall?
I mean, we all know he clears a route, right? So it's no news what we're breaking there.
Got it. Thank you.
We then asked Democratic Congress member Magaziner. Here's what he had to tell us when the Midas Touch cameras asked him. Let's play this clip.
Harrison, real quick, why do you think that no one is showing up to Donald Trump's 250th party on the National Mall?
I mean, I don't know. Because it's not good. Like it's not well executed. I actually like. I should like have some kind of like a clever, funny thing to say about this, but like I'm actually sad about it. Like,
yeah,
America 250. Like this was like a time when like we should be coming together as a nation, and like any other president, any other person of either party would have like approached it in that spirit and tried to make it about the country instead of Trump trying to make it about himself. And this was just like a real missed opportunity, you know, to bring us together as a country. And, you know, instead, because Trump is who he is and only cares about himself and like wants to like just like constantly be feeding his own ego, he put together this like shitty event that no one's at. And you see like the clips on Fox News where they're like talking about how great it is, and then behind them it's like an empty field.
Right.
But like honestly, like it just makes me sad. Like I wish that we had a leader in this country that actually cared about bringing people together instead of just like constantly putting himself first.
In terms of either you're for Trump or against Trump. Now, with you being like so forcefully, your comedy is brutal.
Yeah.
About Trump. He even calls you out about it.
Yeah.
Are you threatened at all? Do people get emotional with you? Do they start screaming at you if you go out to a restaurant?
No. I mean, let's be honest. I live in Manhattan, which
Right.
is a
liberal town.
Yeah.
Right.
But also, you know, I do feel like because we've been very open about what our show is.
Right.
I think if you love Donald Trump, you've probably chosen to disengage.
Senator, I appreciate the question. As you know, with 2 CFR, it's signed off by all 41 agencies.
Right, but in your mind, you're asking to be a decision maker, right? So I understand there's a chain. I was a federal government employee for a long time, but you're up here for Senate confirmation, so it's a big job. Is a protest, a First Amendment peaceful protest on a college campus threaten the federal dollars that they are getting for cancer research under the rules that you will be enforcing? Yes or no?
Senator, you're asking a hypothetical question, but I would note that this
Well, we
rule
have protests. We do. I mean, I have University of Michigan and Michigan State. There are protests from time to time, that's for sure. So it's not hypothetical. This is something that literally in 15, 20 days you could be dealing with. Is a First Amendment protest on a college campus enough to be, quote, anti-American or threatening the reputation of this administration?
In the hypothetical question that you're asking related to grants for cancer research, this administration is committed to gold standard science and wants to advance the best cancer research that we possibly can.
Okay, so if they can have a protest on their campus, and I would just say slashing cancer research and slashing our science institutions around the country, and making us have to be literally 1/10 of the medical research that's going on in like places like China and Europe is not a way to uphold a gold standard for cancer research. And I say that for a woman who's, you know, got cancer in her family. If a domestic violence shelter receives a federal grant, but they also post complaints about this administration's cutting of domestic violence funding, will that put them at risk of being labeled anti-American or threatening the reputation of this administration?
Senator, again, you're asking hypothetical questions. The ultimate deciders of these grants will be the political employees at the agencies. I would imagine in this situation, it would likely be HHS.
The political employees? The political appointees like yourself?
The political appointees. OMB does not issue grants. We issue guidance, uniform
Right.
guidance on grants. So I would not make decisions on a specific grant.
But if
It would
someone
be
calls you, I mean, again, this is like, you can't want the big job, but then not answer the big questions. I think the idea that First Amendment activities would be, quote, anti-American or threatening the reputation of this administration, you understand that you're creating a climate of fear around things that are actually, it's the opposite of anti-American. It's the most American thing in the world, the First Amendment. So I think you've raised a lot of concerns in your testimony of the last couple of days, but the idea that the administration would put that kind of language out there to intimidate and scare people out of freedom of speech is something that is the most anti-American thing I've seen in a long time.
Calling the Iran deal the worst foreign policy blunder in decades. Tillis revealing the $100 billion price tag. Tucker Carlson apologized to his audience in April for misleading supporters. Mary Trump on CNN. Donald Trump has never been fit in any capacity. George Conway running for Congress on a third impeachment platform. The cultural opposition is full spectrum. Whoopi Goldberg, Da Bald America. Sonny Hostin, Beneath the Dignity. Rosie O'Donnell, con man, narcissist, psychopath. Barack Obama, worse off. Robert De Niro, monstrous leaders. Bruce Springsteen, shout loud enough to be heard at the White House. George Clooney, war crime. Bill Maher, derangement syndrome. Trevor Noah, sexual deviant. Jimmy Kimmel, Retreaty of Versailles. Alec Baldwin, who won an Emmy mocking him. Taylor Swift cheered in the arena that booed him. Tom Hanks, branded destructive for being decent. Jim Carrey, who warned in paint of an extinction-level event. And Howard Stern, who has the receipts, decades of them, in Trump's own voice. And here's why Howard Stern's voice matters more than almost any other on that list. Every other critic is, in some sense, on the outside, analyzing Trump, opposing him, characterizing him. Howard Stern was on the inside. He was a friend. He has the tapes. He heard Donald Trump, relaxed and unguarded, over hundreds of hours across 30 years, and he knows, not suspects knows, that the man selling himself to working Americans as their tough guy champion is a Manhattan celebrity who privately rates women by number, talks about his own daughter as an object, runs everything through the family for profit, and holds his own voters in quiet contempt. Stern cannot be told he doesn't understand the real Trump, because Stern knew the real Trump before the fake one was invented. That is the unique, unanswerable power of his testimony. When Howard Stern says, "I have no respect for Trump or his voters," he is not sneering from a distance. He is grieving a friend who chose to become a monster and warning the people that friend is lying to. Drop a comment with the Howard Stern moment that hit hardest for you. Was it his blunt, "I have no respect for Trump or his voters"? The decades of tapes that captured how Trump really talks about women?
Got it. Thank you, Congressman.
We then got a hold of Democratic Congress member Olszewski. Here's what he told us. Let's play it.
So, Congressman, why do you think no one is showing up to Donald Trump's 250th anniversary?
Because his party sucks.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun to do.
Right.
Even Vanilla Ice canceled on him last minute because the weather was supposed to be bad, but it turned out being just fine. So, if you throw bad parties, no one's going to come.
I assume you're not going.
No, I will not be there with anything that is specifically aligned with the president.
Got it.
Anyone who makes this about himself as opposed to the 250th anniversary of our amazing country deserves the party alone.
Got it. Thank you, Congressman.
Here's what Congress member Pocan had to say to us. Let's play it.
So why do you think no one's showing up to Trump's 250th party on the mall?
Because it's got all of Trump's sensibilities, everything from LG to bad music. It's Donald Trump personified, so no one's shown up.
Thank you, Congressman.
And here's what MAGA Republican Congress member Fry told us. He said, the real issue why there was not many people there was it's a weekday. And don't worry, you'll start to see the crowds and people start flooding in. It's right around the corner, right when the healthcare plan gets here, right when we have a deal with Iran, right when that $21 trillion comes in, right when the manufacturing boom is going to take in, right when you're going to get those
amazing day. I mean, the day has to start early.
Well, today, the next 3 days will be crazy because we can't write ahead of time. Like there's going to be impeachment hearings all day today, all day tomorrow, all day Thursday.
Yeah, so what do you do?
We basically watch and write in real time.
Do you ever think like the president of the United States is going to try to get you?
I feel like he's angrier about SNL now than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's angry with you. He's tweeted about you.
He has, but not for a while. I think like he...
Now, additional issues that have Donald Trump and his regime panic. The Defense Department, which unlawfully calls itself the Department of War, is running out of money. U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense Steve Feinberg has informed congressional appropriators the Pentagon will now require $80 billion in supplemental funds to cover the cost of the Iran war. but I thought you guys said it only cost $20 billion. No, it's got hundreds and billions of dollars, probably in the trillions. We're learning this as well, that the purported American pilot of the U.S. Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle that was shot down over Iran in April, requiring that purported mission near Isfahan, said that when he was in the air, there were multiple Iranian drones hovering in the air, moving as one in a formation that resembled a jellyfish. Four sources familiar with the matter told CNN. Multiple drones interconnected and moving as one, with smaller drones below the bigger drones like legs. A source familiar with the pilot's account said, "Real alien shit." Another source described what the pilot witnessed as a minefield of drones in the air before that F-15 was downed. And this has people in the Defense Department very, very nervous right now. So with all of this going on, what else is the Trump regime doing? You've got Marco Rubio further threatening Cuba. Moving on to their next imperialist threats, or they've always been threatening Cuba, but here's what Rubio says. The situation in Cuba is devolving as the island's corrupt, brutal, and anti-American communist regime continues to prioritize its own total control over the freedom, opportunity, and basic well-being of the Cuban people. The Cuban military-controlled conglomerate GAESA has persistently served as the main vector for regime elites to steal the island's few resources, diverting them for repression. Now they use the words like vector and this. By the way, y'all are putting a
his insistence that the marriage, like everything else with Trump, is transactional, his 2024 break with a decades-long friendship to warn the country, or simply the fact that Stern, more than any other person alive, has Donald Trump on the record in his own voice, being exactly who Stern says he is? Tell me. Every one of those moments is on tape. Literally, in Stern's archive. Everyone is part of the historical record, and everyone has aged into a sharper, more accurate picture of who Donald Trump actually is than anything most political commentators have produced about the same man. Hit subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this. Share the video. The corporate media won't connect the dots. Paramount paid Trump $16 million to settle a 60 Minutes lawsuit. CBS canceled Stephen Colbert in the middle of a merger fight. ABC suspended Jimmy Kimmel for 6 days last September after FCC threats. And Bari Weiss has gutted 60 Minutes and pushed out Scott Pelley. The institutional cowardice is real, but the independent voices, the Sterns, the Kimmels, the Colberts, the Obamas, the Whoopies, the Sonny Hostins, the Rosie O'Donnells, the Clooneys, the De Niros, the Baldwins, the Mayers, the Trevor Noahs, the Hankses, the Carries, the Maiselaces, the Springsteens, the Conways are the only voices doing this work, and we're not stopping. Donald Trump is, on this particular Wednesday, the President of the United States who announced that Iran has requested a meeting that Iran says never happened, and its foreign ministry called fake news, whose defeated enemy is publicly celebrating a great victory for the Iranian people, while refusing to meet him and hasn't even received its money, whose son-in-law is negotiating in the same Gulf countries that poured billions into his private firm, whose response to the gas prices his own war caused is to threaten the gas stations, who just won the power to purge independent agencies while his own Supreme Court left standing the $5 million verdict that he sexually abused a woman, and who told the country 45,000 people came to a state fair that NBC says was nearly empty. Howard Stern is the man who knew him for 30 years, who has the tapes, who heard Donald Trump reveal himself in his own unguarded voice again and again, and who finally said out loud the truest thing anyone has said about him: "I have no respect for Trump or his voters." They were friends once. Stern watched what the man became, and the tapes he holds, decades of Donald Trump telling the world exactly who he is, remain the most honest documentary of this president that exists. Both of those men are part of the historical record now, and the gap between the tough guy champion Trump plays on television and the man Howard Stern actually knew gets wider and clearer and harder to deny every single day. See you in the next one.